Hello guys, I wanted to talk with you today about Jen Psaki and her recent decision to leave the White House as press secretary, and she will now be moving to MSNBC as a host. She has not signed the paperwork officially, and MSNBC and the White House have declined to make a comment on this yet, but it's in the advanced stages from what CNN has said, is that Jen Psaki and her agreement to join MSNBC to leave the White House press is in its advanced stages, and this is the second time just since Biden has been president that this has happened in the press secretary pool of the White House. This happened to Simone Sanders, who worked for Kamala Harris in the vice presidency. She was a press secretary for her, and Simone Sanders has also moved to MSNBC. So why is Jen doing this? It's unclear why she chose MSNBC, but at first I want to address, was she pushed out, or is this something that she wants? That I don't know. I mean, a lot of press secretaries don't have a very long shelf life. I thought that Sarah Huckabee Sanders was probably the finest press secretary I can recall, but she didn't last very long either. Sarah lasted maybe a year or two, and no longer than that. And I thought that was unfortunate. It was an unfortunate turn of events in the White House under Trump, given her expertise. But for Jen, I do believe that she was not a great press secretary, to be honest. I mean, there were numerous situations where I was thinking, why are you saying this? Why are you being more curt and more upfront than you have to? Like, your job is to manage the president's viewpoints to the press, and you're supposed to. I mean, you're telling as much of the truth as you can, while you're trying to build trust, but you're also it makes no sense to provide unprovoked information as a press secretary. I mean, if you're pressed on an issue, that it makes sense, but a press secretary's job is to answer to the press, but also hold back, to hold a curtain to the president and allow peeks in and give a little bit. But so the press secretary. So it's unclear if she was pushed out or not, but I personally didn't think that she was very effective at her job, at least when it came to issues like, back in last summer when we found out that the White House has been was directing censorship on Facebook. That's what we found out over the summer. We also, and we didn't have to find that out. I mean, Jen told us more information than she had to, and that's something that I would say it makes you a bad press secretary, is giving out more information than necessary. Sometimes she just didn't appear particularly confident, and her mannerisms made her seem nervous. But anyway, so I wasn't impressed by her performance. So, and frankly, I mean, I didn't like what she said, but maybe I didn't like a lot of the things she said, because a lot of the things that she said that got pressed that I noticed were things that were pro-censorship and authoritarian by nature. I don't know how much and sometimes I had to even question how much the Biden administration would actually, like how much the White House would actually endorse those statements. They're supposed to endorse everything she says. Everything she says is supposed to be word of the president, essentially. So and that's a big. Those are big. That's a huge responsibility. So what's it mean that this has happened twice now in the last couple of months, that a press secretary from the White House, an internal member who answers to the press, is now working for the press? Well, what it gives these press secretaries, what it gives them as a profession, is an off ramp. If you are a press secretary, you will see this as a trend. If you're hired as the next press secretary for Joe Biden, you're going to look at this and you're going to think, well, the last two press secretaries got hired by MSNBC. It seems like there's a bit of a relationship forming between the current White House and MSNBC, and it makes sense that somebody who, like, if two people who you worked with or worked for in the White House now work for MSNBC, those people are now going to be able to vouch for you as an employee if you ever want to leave to go to MSNBC or anywhere else. And now whenever you are and now MSNBC, by providing this, they're going to encourage, it's going to be incentivized for them to be called on first, because if you're working under the Biden administration, you're going to see that you're going to appreciate that cozy relationship, and you would like the option of working for them someday if you had to or wanted to. So sure, you're more likely to call on MSNBC and ask and take their questions. You know, it's more likely. Like, why wouldn't you? It's one thing to prefer to call on reporters who work for a news agency who happens to give you a lot of softball questions, and to call on the press who gives you the easiest questions and you can give easy answers too. That's one thing. Everybody does that. It's a bit of a bias, but it's a lot worse when you prefer or deny your answer, and who you take questions from in the press room, based on who you want to get a job from after this is over, and who's hiring and who's not going to hire you. I mean, that's you taking it from a personal bias towards or against, who I think is going to help, who I think is a friend or an enemy in this room, to who's not only a friend or an enemy, but who's going to give me a job, because I'm going to need a job when this is over. So, and frankly, it's unclear how the relationship works exactly. I mean, does the White House want to infiltrate their favorite? Does the current White House want to infiltrate their favorite news network with people who have already worked for Biden and are already going to parrot a lot of his messages, or does MSNBC influence who's going to be press secretary and how these press secretaries are going to, and where they're going to work when this is over? It's a symbiotic relationship. I'd say it's a little bit of both. Yes, the White House wants to answer easy questions, and they want to ensure that their press secretaries are set up in positions where they can continue to provide the White House's perspective. The administration that they worked under is going to influence their viewpoint. So sure, Joe Biden does not mind this relationship, nor does MSNBC, who of course not only gets internal insight to the White House and its briefings, but they also are going to. It's just a symbiotic relationship that's going to continue to strengthen if this continues, and it's a bad sign. It's a cozying up that we haven't seen. Like, the left likes to criticize the right, like Fox News or Newsmax or One American News, all these media outlets that are right wing, that they say are too sycophantic and too loving and unquestioning of Trump. But do they hire people who've worked for Trump? I mean, maybe as contributors, but actually giving them a job, like actually giving them a position, like a nightly news position. That's a little different. So I mean, it's bad on both sides, but at least the corruption on both sides. It has different flavors. I mean, there's the unquestioning worship of whatever Trump would do on Fox News in a lot of cases, and then there's the careering and climbing the corporate ladder, so to speak, and playing the career game in the current White House, which involves a symbiotic relationship between the press and the White House press room. So it's a dirty game, and I hope that this kind of thing doesn't continue, but it's a bad sign. It's a bad sign when press secretaries are leaving to go join their favorite media outlets. It just because it just means that there's a larger group of people at MSNBC who are friendly with the White House press pool, and then there's a larger group of people in the White House press pool who are friendly with MSNBC because they've both worked together now. The people in the White House currently there used to work with the people who now work for MSNBC, so they're going to continue to have a relationship between MSNBC and the current outside of. So this is a position of privilege for MSNBC because now they not only do they have special privileges in the press room by the preference that they'll get from people thinking that they'll get a job at MSNBC someday, but they also have a privileged insight into the relationship between people who used to work for and with the current people who are hosts who used to be press secretaries with the White House. So you have the former employees of the White House keeping an ongoing relationship with the current members of the White House who likely used to work with them. So they know how. So they already have a camaraderie and a relationship that's outside of the press room, and that's concerning because that puts MSNBC in a uniquely privileged position. So that's something to keep an eye on.